Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast, the weekly Torah portion podcast where I read the weekly Torah portion, then provide my own interpretation of what I think it all means. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Ve'etchanan, which translates to I Entreated, falling on the Shabbat for the 13th of Av, 5784, August 17th, 2024. This is Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 23 is where we'll be beginning. If you want to follow along in English, you can do so on Chabad.org. As always, I remind everybody I am not a professional Torah scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the Torah. Let's begin. First portion, chapter 3 of Deuteronomy, Devarim, verse 23. I entreated the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For who is like God in heaven or on earth who can do as your deeds and your might? Pray, let me cross over and see the good land that is on the other side of the Jordan, this good mountain and the Lebanon. But the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he did not listen to me. And the Lord said to me, It is enough for you. Speak to me no more regarding this matter. Go up to the top of the hill, and lift your eyes westward and northward, and southward and eastward, and see with your eyes, for you shall not cross this Jordan. But command Joshua, and strengthen him, and encourage him, for he will cross over before this people, and he will make them inherit the land which you will see. And we abided in the valley opposite Beth Peor. Chapter 4, verse 1. And now, O Israel, hearken to the statutes, and to the judgments which I teach you to do, in order that you may live, and go in, and possess the land which the Lord God of your forefathers is giving to you. Do not add to the word which I command you, nor diminish from it, to observe the commandments of the Lord your God which I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor, for every man who went after Baal Peor, the Lord your God has exterminated from your midst. But you who cleave to the Lord your God are alive, all of you, this day. All right, that's the end of the first portion. So picking up from where we left off last time, this is the next section of Moses' farewell address. So we continued that in the previous portion, now last week's. Now he is continuing. So here we hear a further explanation of Moses' fate. Because of what the people of Israel did with all their complaining and whining, driving Moses to anger, he disobeyed God, and God said, because you did that, you're not going to enter the Holy Land. And so this is his farewell. But he tells them, support Joshua and strengthen him, because he is going to then lead you to do this. And don't forget now, remember all the laws I said. This is probably, I would say this might be the most important verse in the entire Torah, which is a lot to say, especially because we're not done with it. But this is chapter 4 of Deuteronomy, Devarim. It is verse 2. Do not add to the word which I command you, nor diminish from it, to observe the commandments of the Lord your God which I command you. So this statement is huge. Do not add to the word, nor diminish from it. This is very interesting. We have all of these different writings and teachings and traditions, things people treat as law. But do not add to the word which I command you, nor diminish from it. In other words, the Torah is the absolute law. There is no wiggle room here. There is no negotiation. Don't mess with it. Don't change it. Exactly as Moses has given it, it shall be. So if anybody wants to start adding rules or changing things up or saying that the rules are no longer this or that, no, this is the law. These are the commandments. Don't mess with it. So like I said, don't forget this. It's the most important, arguably. Now going on from there, he reminds them, you've seen with your own eyes those who strayed and went after Baal Peor, the other deity, right? Destroyed. But those who stayed loyal, they were saved, and they are here. Now on to the second portion, chapter 4, verse 5 of Devarim. Behold, I have taught you statutes and ordinances as the Lord my God commanded me, to do so in the midst of the land to which you are coming to possess. And you shall keep them and do them, for that is your wisdom and your understanding in the eyes of the peoples, who will hear all these statutes and say, Only this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that God is so near to it, as the Lord our God is at all times that we call upon him? And which great nation is it that has just statutes and ordinances as this entire Torah, which I set before you today? But beware and watch yourself very well, lest you forget the things that your eyes saw, and lest these things depart from your heart all the days of your life, and you shall make them known to your children and to your children's children. The day you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, when the Lord said to me, Assemble the people for me, and I will let them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and that they may teach their children. And you approached and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire up to the midst of the heavens, with darkness a cloud, and opaque darkness. The Lord spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the sound of the words, but saw no image, just a voice. And he told you his covenant, which he commanded you to do, the 10 Commandments, and he inscribed them on 2 stone tablets. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and ordinances, so that you should do them in the land to which you are crossing to possess. And you shall watch yourselves very well, for you did not see any image on the day that the Lord spoke to you at Horeb from the midst of the fire, lest you become corrupt, and make for yourselves a graven image, the representation of any form, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the heaven, the likeness of anything that crawls on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And lest you lift up your eyes to heaven, and see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the host of heaven, which the Lord your God assigned to all peoples under the entire heaven, and be drawn away to prostrate yourselves before them and worship them. But the Lord took you and brought you out of the iron crucible, out of Egypt, to be a people of his possession, as of this day. And the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he swore that I would not cross the Jordan, and that I would not come into the good land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. For I will die in this land. I will not cross the Jordan. You, however, will cross, and you will possess this good land. Beware, lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and make for yourselves a graven image, the likeness of anything which the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a zealous God. When you beget children and children's children, and you will be long established in the land, and you become corrupt and make a graven image, the likeness of anything, and do evil in the eyes of the Lord your God, to provoke him to anger, I call as witness against you this very day the heaven and the earth, that you will speedily and utterly perish from the land to which you cross the Jordan, to possess. You will not prolong your days upon it, but will be utterly destroyed. And the Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and you will remain few in number among the nations to where the Lord will lead you. And there you will worship gods, man's handiwork, wood and stone, which neither see, hear, eat, nor smell. And from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him, if you seek him with all your heart and all your soul. When you are distressed, and all these things happen upon you in the end of days, then you will return to the Lord your God and obey him. For the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not let you loose or destroy you, neither will he forget the covenant of your fathers which he swore to them. For ask now regarding the early days that were before you, since the day that God created man upon the earth, and from one end of the heavens to the other end of the heavens, whether there was anything like this great thing, or was the likes of it heard? Did ever a people hear God's voice speaking out of the midst of the fire as you have heard and live? Or has any God performed miracles, and take him, a nation from the midst of another nation, with trials, with signs, and with wonders, and with war, and with a strong hand, and with an outstretched arm, and with great awesome deeds, as all that the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? You have been shown in order to know that the Lord, he is God. There is none else besides him. From the heavens he let you hear his voice to instruct you, and upon the earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your forefathers, and chose their seed after them, and he brought you out of Egypt before him with his great strength, to drive out from before you nations greater and stronger than you, to bring you and give you their land for an inheritance as this day. And you shall know this day, and consider it in your heart, that the Lord, he is God in heaven above, and upon the earth below there is none else. And you shall observe his statutes and his commandments, which I command you this day, that it may be well with you, and your children after you, and that you may prolong your days upon the earth which the Lord your God gives you forever. End of second portion. So here we continue more of Moses' great testimony regarding their history and the power of God. So first up, reminding them, I've told you all of the rules, the statutes and ordinances. Make sure that you keep them, because the world over is going to see you with them and say, look at these people, what wise people they are because of the Torah that they have. Who else but these people has God with them at all times, right? And then also, be careful, this is verse 9, beware and watch yourself very well, lest you forget the things your eyes saw, and lest these things depart from your heart. You'll make them known for your children, because as we recall, you were told to stand there before him on that mountain, and he told you with his own voice those commandments, and then commanded me to teach you all the statutes and ordinances, and you will not slip. Do not forget, because if you do, no, this is verse 16, right? Now this is very interesting, because there are many ordinances, right? Many things that Moses tells them, but he's very specific. The big one, the big no-no, lest you become corrupt and make for yourselves a graven image, the representation of any form, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird, etc. He's very specific, even the heavens, right? Nothing in the sky. Do not put your faith into idols. Do not use something else to represent. This is a formless God. This is a God that does not have a form. There is no likeness of God on earth. There is no physical form of God. He doesn't look like a man. He doesn't look like a beast. He doesn't look like the stars in the sky. God Almighty, the King, the heavenly host, is formless. He is only a voice. That is your God. Do not fall into the pitfalls of idol worship. Or else, with Moses here making a proclamation, he's practically cursing them, saying, if you do this, heaven is my witness, you will be cast out from the land, and you will go into exile where you will be a small people among alien nations. But when you call out to God, he will hear you, he will remember you, and at the end of time, he will bring you home. So don't forget, because if you screw this up, you're going to be destroyed. I call upon as your prosecutor, the witness before heaven and earth, don't blow it, or else. But don't forget, he's not going to let you go. He's not going to let you be entirely destroyed. He will remember the covenant, but don't blow it, because you're going to suffer in between. Has there ever been anything as great as this, ever, since the creation of heaven and earth to now? Nothing. You've been shown that God is real and he's powerful, and you're being given this land because he loved your ancestors, and he's going to drive out nations that are stronger than you so that you can inherit the land. Don't forget this. Remember these commandments, and that's how it is. And this is the end of Moses' great farewell address. His final verse, you shall observe his statutes and his commandments, which I command you this day, that it may be well with you and your children after you, and that you may prolong your days upon the earth, which the Lord your God gives you forever. All right, now on to the third portion, chapter 4, verse 41 of Deuteronomy. Then Moses decided to separate 3 cities on this side of the Jordan toward the sunrise, so that a murderer might flee there, he who murders his fellow man unintentionally, but did not hate him in time past, that he may flee to one of these cities so that he might live. Bezer in the desert, in the plain country of the Reubenites, Ramoth in Gilead of the Gadites, and Golan in the Bashan of the Manassites. And this is the teaching which Moses set before the children of Israel. These are the testimonies, statutes, and ordinances which Moses spoke to the children of Israel when they went out of Egypt, on side of the Jordan in the valley, opposite Beth Peor, in the land of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, whom Moses and the children of Israel smote after they went out of Egypt. And they possessed his land and the land of Og, king of the Bashan, the 2 kings of the Amorites who were on this side of the Jordan, toward the sunrise. from Aroer, which is by the bank of the river Arnon, to Mount Sion, which is Hermon, and all the plain across the Jordan eastward as far as the sea of the plain, under the waterfalls of the hill. So that's the end of the third portion. To break it down real simply, this is where Moses makes sanctuary cities for people who are guilty of manslaughter, basically. A murderer who kills somebody unintentionally and did not have hatred for him. So there was no this was a grudge or something. This is just an accident, basically. Accidentally killed a guy, didn't mean to, and I didn't have any ill will toward him, but he's unfortunately been killed. The guy may flee to one of these cities on this side of the Jordan. And then from there, he affirms these are the rules and everything as they're on this side of the Jordan in these particular locations. So now we go to the fourth portion, chapter 5 of Deuteronomy of Devarim, verse 1. And Moses called all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and ordinances which I speak in your ears this day, and learn them, and observe them, to do them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. Not with our forefathers did the Lord make this covenant, but with us, we all of who are here alive today. Face to face the Lord spoke with you at the mountain out of the midst of the fire. And I stood between the Lord and you at that time, to tell you the word of the Lord, for you were afraid of the fire. And you did not go up on the mountain, saying, I am the Lord your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall not have gods of others in my presence. You shall not make for yourself a graven image or any likeness which is in the heavens above, which is on the earth below, or which is in the water beneath the earth. You shall not prostrate yourselves before them, nor worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a zealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the sons, upon the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me. And I perform loving kindness to thousands of generations, and those who love me to those who keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold blameless anyone who takes his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days may you work, and perform all your labor, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall perform no labor, neither you, your son, your daughter, nor your manservant, your maidservant, your ox, your donkey, any of your livestock, nor the stranger who is within your cities, in order that your manservant and your maidservant may rest like you. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord your God took you out from there with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother as the Lord your God commanded you, in order that your days be lengthened, and that it may go well with you on the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, and you shall not commit adultery, and you shall not steal, and you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor shall you desire your neighbor's house, his field, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Thus concludes the fourth portion. So, quickly recapping once again, Moses is telling them, here's a reminder, these are the rules. Now, we had a covenant made with us that was special, different from the one that was made with our forefathers. This is our covenant that he made with us. And it says the 10 Commandments. So Moses goes down the 10 Commandments once again. Don't forget these most important 10. And that's exactly what the rest of that portion's about. Now we move on to the next portion, chapter 5 of Devarim, verse 19. The Lord spoke these words to your entire assembly at the mountain out of the midst of the fire, the cloud, and the opaque darkness, with a great voice which did not cease. And he inscribed them on 2 stone tablets and gave them to me. And it was when you heard the voice from the midst of the darkness, and the mountain was burning with fire, that you approached me, all the heads of your tribes and your elders. And you said, Behold, the Lord our God has shown us his glory and his greatness, and we heard his voice from the midst of the fire. We saw this day that God speaks with man, yet man remains alive. So now why should we die? For this great fire will consume us. If we continue to hear the voice of the Lord our God any more, we will die. For who is there of all flesh who heard the voice of the living God speaking from the midst of the fire as we have, and lived? You approach and hear all that the Lord our God will say, and you speak to us that the Lord our God will speak to you, we will hear and do. And the Lord heard the sound of your words when you spoke to me, and the Lord said to me, I have heard the sound of the words of this people that they have spoken to you. They have done well in all that they have spoken. Would that their hearts be like this, to fear me and to keep all my commandments all the days, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. Go say to them, return to their tents. But as for you, stand here with me, and I will speak to you all the commandments, the statutes, and the ordinances which you will teach them, that they may do them in the land which I give them to possess. Keep them to perform, as the Lord your God has commanded you. Do not turn aside either to the right or to the left. In all the way which the Lord your God has commanded you, you shall go, in order that you may live, and that it may be well with you, and so that you may prolong your days in the land that you will possess. Chapter 6, verse 1. This is the commandment, the statutes, and the ordinances that the Lord your God commanded to teach you, to perform in the land into which you are about to pass to possess it, in order that you fear the Lord your God, to keep all his statutes, his commandments, that I command you, your son, and your son's son, all the days of your life, and in order that your days may be lengthened. And you shall therefore hearken, O Israel, and be sure to perform, so that it will be good for you, and so that you may increase exceedingly, just as the Lord, the God of your fathers, spoke to you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Thus concludes the 5th portion. So here, Moses was resuming his farewell address, as I mentioned in the previous portions, right? So after doing those sanctuary cities, he went over the 10 Commandments in the previous portion. Now in this one, he is once again reminding everybody of the event that took place at Mount Horeb, how they said, they all heard the voice, but they were terrified, and they said, Moses, we're scared. Who could hear this kind of a voice and survive it, right? Nobody's ever lived, so we don't want to die. Please, you do the rest. And God heard them and said, very well, let them go to their tents, and you, Moses, I will give you directly to convey to them so that they don't have to sit here and be scared. So make sure you do exactly as I'm telling you and pass it on to your sons and their sons and their sons, and you will live a long life because you have honored my commandments. Don't look to the left or to the right. Stay on the path. And now, here we are. Remember to do these things, and you shall receive the land flowing with milk and honey. Now on to the 6th portion, chapter 6, verse 4 of Deuteronomy. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your means. And these words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart, and you shall teach them to your sons, and speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk on the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be ornaments for between your eyes. And you shall inscribe them upon the doorposts of your house, and upon your gates. And it will be when the Lord your God brings you to the land he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you great and good cities that you did not build, and houses full of all good things that you did not fill, and hewn cisterns that you did not hew, vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant, and you will eat and be satisfied. Beware, lest you forget the Lord, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall fear the Lord your God, worship him, and swear by his name. Do not go after other gods, or the gods of the peoples who are around you. For the Lord your God is a zealous God among you, lest the wrath of the Lord your God be kindled against you, and destroy you off the face of the earth. You shall not try the Lord your God as you tried him in Massah. Diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, and his testimonies, and his statutes, which he has commanded you. And you shall do what is proper and good in the eyes of the Lord, in order that it may be well with you, and that you may come and possess the good land which the Lord swore to your forefathers, to drive out all your enemies from before you, as the Lord has spoken. If your son asks you in time to come, saying, What are the testimonies, the statutes, and the ordinances which the Lord our God has commanded you? You shall say to your son, We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. The Lord took us out of Egypt with a strong hand. And the Lord gave signs and wonders, great and terrible, upon Egypt, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household, before our eyes. And he brought us out of there, in order that he might bring us and give us the land which he swore to our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to perform all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God for our good all the days, to keep us alive as of this day. And it will be for our merit that we keep to observe all these commandments before the Lord our God, as he has commanded us. End of the 6th portion. The most powerful prayer, the Shema, verse 4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, followed by the Ve'ahavta. this is the most important, perhaps, of all the verses when it comes to from Moses. I already said that previously, that we have quite possibly the most important verse, but I think here is a further affirmation of that, and one to carry us throughout all time. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your means. Beautiful, powerful, absolute reminders, right, on your arms, between your eyes, on your doorposts. When you are in the land and you have all these good things, you will receive things that you didn't even put effort into making. You're going to receive the work others had done, and you're going to be satisfied. But don't you forget him. Don't you forget him. Don't go after other gods, because otherwise there will be consequences. Keep his commandments. Do what he finds to be proper and good. As your children ask you, what are the testimonies and so on, you tell them. You tell them about him taking us out of Egypt, and you tell them about all the things we are to do, because that is what your God commands you, and if you do it, you will prosper. Thus concludes the 6th recap. Now let's go on to the 7th and final for this week. Chapter 7, verse 1 of Devarim. When the Lord your God brings you into the land to which you are coming to possess it, he will cast away many nations from before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations more numerous and powerful than you. And the Lord your God will deliver them to you, and you shall smite them. You shall utterly destroy them. Neither shall you make a covenant with them, nor be gracious to them. You shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughter to his son, and you shall not take his daughter for your son. For he will turn away your son from following me, and they will worship the gods of others, and the wrath of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will quickly destroy you. But so shall you do to them. You shall demolish their altars, and smash their monuments, and cut down their Asherim trees, and burn their graven images with fire. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be his treasured people, out of all the peoples upon the face of the earth. Not because you are more numerous than any people did the Lord delight in you and choose you, for you are the least of all the peoples, but because of the Lord's love for you, and because he keeps the oath he swore to your forefathers. The Lord took you out with a strong hand and redeemed you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh the king of Egypt. Know therefore that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God, who keeps the covenant and loving kindness with these who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. And he repays those who hate him to their face, to cause them to perish. He will not delay the ones who hate him, but he will repay him to his face. You shall therefore observe the commandments, the statutes, and the ordinances, which I command you this day to do. End of portion 7 and this week's Torah portion. So let's go ahead and quickly recap. A reminder once again, when you get into the land, you're going to see all these nations that are great and powerful. God is going to cast them out for you. 7 great nations, bigger and more powerful than you, he's going to push them away. You are going to smite them, to completely and utterly crush them. Don't make a deal with them. Don't show them mercy. Don't intermarry with them, because guess what? They're going to have you start doing all this idol worship and worshiping other gods, and then what's going to happen? I'm going to have to destroy you, says God. So don't let that happen. On top of that, when you get there, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to destroy their holy sites, destroy their altars, destroy their idols, burn them, crush them, smash them, cut them down, get rid of all of them. Why? You are a holy chosen people. He loves you. You are his treasure. And it wasn't because you were a great numbered people. No, you were actually smaller. He loves you because he remembers his promise to your forefathers. He keeps his oath, and he took you out with a strong hand. So always know, God is all-powerful, all-merciful, but also quick to punish those who deserve punishment. Anyone who he is treasured and loved by will be repaid for 1,000 generations. But those who hate him, those who disrespect him, he is going to punish them without hesitation. They will suffer. Therefore, observe the commandments, observe the statutes, and observe the ordinances I command you this day. And there we have it. I mean, you can't get a more clear on-the-nose explanation than that. Moses has made it very simple. Follow the rules. That's all you got to do. Follow these rules, because if you don't, there will be consequences. Have I mentioned that enough times yet? Now you know. God loves and rewards those who follow, and he punishes those who rebuke him. So don't be one of those people. Instead, be the ones to inherit the great things that he has promised you through your forefathers. And with that, that's the end of this week's portion. Profound stuff, really quintessential. Here we are at the end game of the Torah, yet we're seeing some of the most important messages here, reminders of things that have come to pass, and also the real key takeaways. If you weren't paying attention thus far, Moses basically tells you this is what you need to pay attention to. So now, anybody listening to this, if you come from these traditions, perhaps you should do the same. A reminder again, the emphasis on don't worship idols, don't create graven images of anything on earth, right? So man, woman, animal. I mean, we look around the world, there are a lot of cultures that do this. I mean, can you think of any cultures in your life, whether you're in the United States or somewhere else in the world, where these holy places worship the likeness of a human being or the likeness of some sort of animal or worship the stars in the sky? Think about those things, because those are explicitly what he says not to do. He says, remember, when God appeared to us, he did not appear in physical form. You didn't see God. You heard him. You heard God. He did not show up to you in the form of a body or of a thing. God appeared to you as a sound coming from burning fire amidst darkness. Therefore, don't you even think you can use any physical object to represent God, because there was no physical object to represent him when he actually came to the earth. There you have it. So, hope you found that educational and informative, and if you were participating in any particular traditions that don't align with what Moses has said here, remember, he says don't remove a line from this, right? He says don't add to it and don't remove from it. This is the law. So watch your step, be careful, and be sure to follow in line as best you can. Well, until next time, this has been Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast. Thank you as always for listening. I hope you found it educational. I certainly did, and I was moved by the material. Until then, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. And as always, we could not forget, Baruch Hashem.